John Olivier here, your host of Serious and Silliness Outcast and Serious and Silliness Bodybuilding. We have a great new sponsor, Jersey Alternative Medicine, Anti-Aging and Hormone Replacement Clinic. Just go to the website, njaltmeds.com. That's njaltmeds.com. Or you give them a call at 609-977-2981. So what do? They actually offer a variety of services like TRT replacement, medical weight loss, female sexual health, male sexual health, injectable peptides, anti-aging treatment. And this is all under the eyes of an actual physician. You fill out an intake form. You go over symptoms with a clinician, and they will customize medication that you could take. And the best part is it's prescribed by a physician and it is delivered to your doorstep in all 50 states. You don't even have to leave the comfort of your home. That is njaltmeds.com, 609-977-2981. Go to Jersey Alternative Medicine now and get healthy. Here we go. All right, Serious and Silliness Outcast. I have a repeat guest because last time he was here, the interview was fantastic. Mr. Gabe Morales. What's happening, Gabe?
Hey, good morning. How you doing there?
I'm doing good, man. Yeah, it's good morning by you because you're in Hawaii. It is
Yeah.
almost 5 o'clock here in the evening in New Jersey. But for people who don't know, Gabe is a former prison guard and counselor, and he's also an author. And he does a lot of service and does a lot of writing. His books are revolves around prison gangs. So last time we were here, we talked about the Aryan Brotherhood, which is right here. This is his book, The History of the Aryan Brotherhood, right there. Now, his other book, which we'll be discussing today as well, is called The History of the Mexican Mafia, La M. This one. So both links will be in the description area. So you could just click and go. I got both of them on Amazon. They're great reads. I really suggest that you guys go and pick up that book. So before we get started, apologies, but I got to plug the two sponsors that I have. First one, Beer League Warriors Apparel, great gym clothes. Their Instagram will be in the description. So you just click, DM them, and order some clothing to go to the gym. Support small business, great prices, great quality. The other one is Jersey Alternative Medicine, is anti-aging, hormone replacement. If you're feeling sluggish, if you have lack of a sex drive, or you need blood work done, all looked over by a physician. NJALTMEDS.com, 609-977-2981. That's NJALTMEDS.com, 609-977-2981. And they are nationwide. All right. Now, Gabe, how you doing, man?
Yeah, looking forward to doing this again.
So I texted you, I believe it was last week or the week before. So I have a friend, Jeff Nadeau, has a huge true crime channel called The Sit Down. He basically revolves around Cosa Nostra, the mafia, but he likes to branch out and do other things. And he posted this article on his YouTube, and I sent it to you, and I said, "Do you know who this is?" And the article reads: 42 alleged members of Associate of the SFV Peckerwoods, aka San Fernando Valley Peckerwoods, Los Angeles-based white supremacist gang, have been indicted by the feds on trafficking deadly fentanyl and other drugs, robberies, financial fraud to fund both the criminal enterprises of the Aryan Brotherhood. The group sold everything from meth to heroin, fentanyl, and used apps such as Cash App to set up all the buyers. One of the main men indicted is Michael Suspect Vitenza, who at one point was caught on wiretap discussing he was the youngest made member of AB, and at one point shared a prison cell with AB higher up Danny Traxel, who is said to be on the AB ruling panel right now. And I read this. I had no idea who these people were. And I immediately messaged you, and you go, "Oh, yeah, I know a hell of a lot about them."
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I know a little bit, probably more than the average citizen,
Right.
but yes, that's true. Yeah, Danny Troxel was just convicted on the recent AB RICO,
Mm-hmm.
And anytime they go after these big prison gangs and these big federal cases, there's always a vacuum. So the associates, some of the younger ones, they're looking to take that position. So I knew pretty much after they did the Rico case that there's going to be some moving and shaking around in the lower ranks or
Okay.
associates with associates trying to jockey for position. And it appears that's what happened here. And yeah, they, as the article stated, you can look it up on the internet. They were involved in a lot of scams, uh, applying for COVID-19 grants. You know, they were giving those away left and right, and so they're getting some of that money. Just a lot of different scams. I understand they're running a halfway house even, and then while these guys are in the halfway house, they're selling drugs. So
Really?
it's yeah, they're pretty smart. That copies the Mexican mafia model, which we'll discuss here in just a minute. But Peckerwoods, you had asked me about them, and a lot of people don't understand. There's a big difference between Peckerwoods and skinheads.
Mm-hmm.
So skinheads have different types. So you have the original traditionals uh, that started off in the 1960s, and that happened in England. And then you had some of them become racist because of the increase in immigration. I heard somebody say that they had roots in Jamaica. That's not true. They listened, a lot of them listened to Jamaican reggae ska music.
Mm.
That's maybe where some of the confusion comes from. But because Jamaica was part of England, you know, and got independence like a lot of those countries did decades ago, a lot of the English crown nations moved to Canada in England. And so you saw a lot of whites that were kind of like what's happening in America today. A lot of whites concerned about foreigners taking their jobs. And
Mm-hmm.
so then you started seeing the racist skinheads happen. Then it's kind of interesting. Then you had sharps, skinheads against racial prejudice forum. So here are guys that evolved even further and said, you know, hey, we're not against other minorities as long as they're into our culture, we'll accept them. So then you had sharps and racist skinheads fighting each other, including here in the United States. So
Mm-hmm.
that's something that went on pretty heavy, especially during the 80s and 90s. It still happens occasionally, but a lot of the skinhead groups, they mostly, we talked about this last time, they mostly, you know, feud amongst each other. So you have all these rival skinhead groups that all say, you know, we're the true skinheads, or no, we are, you know, we're the best, no, we're the best, you know, all this kind of BS that goes on in a lot of these groups. And a lot of egos get involved. And only so many people can be the top dogs. So it's kind of like King of the Hill. You know, they want to knock them off. I don't know if I mentioned that last time, but
Right.
when you're King of the Hill, somebody always down the hill wants to knock you off the top. So it just, I guess, just human nature among some people. But so you had these skinheads. They're still active in California and in the United States, but I would say that their power has diminished somewhat. The Peckerwoods is just a term that blacks used to call um, Southern whites, you know,
Right.
Peckerwood, because a lot of the, even go back to the slave master days, a lot of the slave masters had red hair, and they would, you know, call them, you know, a woodpecker.
Right.
Um, and I think the cartoon Woody Woodpecker had come out not too long after that too, so they kind of reinforced that. And they call them, you know, Peckerwoods. And the Peckerwoods evolved. It just was a racial term for a white dude by predominantly by blacks.
Mm-hmm.
And then pretty soon after the white convicts started going to prison more and more, especially during the, I started hearing that term a lot more like during the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you had a lot of urban whites that were not racist, even though they, you know, they had white pride and white power, tattoos. Some of them might even have Confederate flags. That thing, it was mostly for show, because a lot of these guys grew up around inner city folks,
Right.
minorities. And so if you hear a skinhead talk, they are very much against talking like urban blacks. Okay, some
Okay.
people call it Ebonics. Um, they if they view a white talking like that, they'll call them a wigger.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
I mean, this is their language, a white nigger. I mean,
Right.
this is something they came up with, not something I came up with. So
Mm-hmm.
they really look down at other whites that race mix.
Mm-hmm.
Skinheads do. Peckerwoods don't have a problem with race mixing. They're really not
Really?
true racists. Yeah, even though they're kind of forced to when they go to prison and jail. They it's very racial, so whites stick amongst whites. But you'll see them do deals with Mexicans, sometimes even converse with blacks.
Mm-hmm.
When they sit down at tables in prison, there's usually four to a table. They will try to, as they go into the chow hall, the dining hall, try to change positions. So they'll count what seats. So whites usually are sitting at a white table, blacks
Mm-hmm.
usually at a black table, Mexicans a black table. Sometimes the guy comes up short. Might be a white guy sitting down, three other blacks. He's still going to talk to him,
Mm-hmm.
not engage in a lot of conversation, but
Right.
he's not going to want to fight him or you know cause any drama there. So it's interesting. A skinhead, he might have a problem even sitting down with them. You might have to
Really?
fight him. Yeah, they're very, and so a lot of the skinheads end up in the segregation, whereas a lot of peckwoods are out in general population. So
Ah,
there's
okay.
some differences there in mindset. I don't know if that makes sense. So one is extremely racist. One, proud of being white. I'm a white boy. I'm a wood. I'm a good wood from the hood, but not truly racist in belief systems. That's the difference I've seen.
Okay.
Skinheads are very organized. They have, you know, strict rules. I mean, you have to join them and stuff. Some of them even have applications. I've never seen that with Peckerwoods. You're just if you're a good, solid wood, a good white boy, that stand up guy, stands up for his own,
Mm-hmm.
especially, um, uh, then you're accepted. There's a guy, people are interested. You could see, it's very unfortunate, but he was swooped up in this indictment. His name is OG Badger, and see, I got his little thing here. So you can look up his right. OG Badger's heavy hitters. He was swooped up in that indictment. Unfortunately, uh, he's fallen on hard times. I believe his real name is Ryan Hall,
Mm-hmm.
but he has been shown recently in a homeless encampment and not doing very good. But he was considered in the LA County Jail one of the main guys for the Peckerwoods. He was swooped up in this indictment. There's
Mm.
also another guy that people could look up. His name is John Splinter, and he runs Prison POV channel on YouTube. So the one
Really?
channel, yeah, like I said, OG Badger, because he's locked up, of course, is not running that. But I know John Splinter is still running Prison POV, and he talks a lot about the Peckwoods. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. I'm not promoting either one of those channels, but in
Right.
case people are interested, in learning more about the Peckwoods as we get more into the Mexican Mafia here. So I hope that
Okay.
makes sense there,
It does. I have a
what
couple
I
of
stated.
questions, but absolutely it does. Um, who seems to be the more powerful within the prison organization, the Peckerwoods or the Skinheads?
Well, the skinheads it's interesting because the skinheads actually beef with the Aryan Brotherhood because
Mm.
Aryan Brotherhood has an alliance with the Mexican Mafia. So, like I said, most skinheads are racist. So they're like, no, we don't talk to
Right.
those mud people. I mean, they're really hardcore racists. They occasionally will deal with deal, but yeah, most of them don't want to have anything to do with minorities. Like I said, Peckerwoods are okay with it. So the mm, you even have Peni, which was supposed to be a skinhead group. They would do deals with Mexicans. So Peni is more, to me, they were just kind of like an alternate to the Nazi lowriders. Nazi lowriders, that was a big support group for the Aryan Brotherhood when I was working during the 80s and 90s.
Mhm.
They were huge. Probably the probably the biggest gang for the whites in the California Department of Corrections, bigger than the Aryan Brotherhood. And the Aryan Brotherhood even made some of them members. But they Nazi lowriders, they got a little too big, and they started not wanting to follow, or some of them not wanting to follow Aryan Brotherhood orders. So
Okay.
that was their downfall. Then you had Public Enemy number one, which started in Long Beach and Orange County, areas of Orange County. That was a skinhead. The lead guy, Donald Mazza, was Popeye. He was a singer for a hardcore skinhead band.
Mhm.
And so they became then the new favorite recruiting group for the Aryan Brotherhood. Then Popeye, in this last AP Rico trial, he dropped out and flipped. So a lot of people in the P9 then were put on disregard, uh, especially if they did a lot of work for Popeye, the lead guy. And so right now, I would say that the majority of the Aryan Brotherhood recruits are from Peckerwood um, mindset, from the Peckerwood mindset. See, here's the
Okay.
thing: they make it sound like in the newspaper like that San Fernando Valley Peckerwoods.
Hmm.
Like, first of all, like they're the only Peckerwoods. They're all over the United States. They're in other states too, not just California. We had a lot of them in Washington State. I've interviewed a lot of Peckerwoods. They had the little Woody Woodpecker tattoo. That was kind of like
Really?
their symbol. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
logo.
so you'd say pure wood, hardwood, solid wood tattoos, saying they're a Peckerwood. But I would say they very loosely organized.
Hmm.
But like I said, when they go to jail and prison, then they come together a little bit more organized in jail and prison. But
Okay.
on the outside, they're really not that organized like
Hmm.
skinheads are on the outside. When a skinhead, whether he's incarcerated or on the outs, he is working hard to further the skinhead movement.
Mm.
Most of these Peckerwoods, when they're on the outside, they're just looking to score drugs,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
hit up on chicks and that kind of thing.
Right, right,
Normal
right.
normal guy stuff.
Normal
Normal
gang,
young guy
right,
stuff.
right, right.
Yeah,
Exactly,
so they're not
exactly.
really that dedicated, I could
Okay.
say,
So are they
to
more
the
like
cause, like Skip.
I understand.
Mhm.
Yeah, hear what you're saying. See, where I grew up, right in Brooklyn, there were, I guess you could call them farm teams, right, for the mafia, right? So, like, for example, in the neighborhood, there was the Bath Avenue Boys, and they were always like guys trying to prove themselves so that they become part of a made member of the mafia. Then there was another group of guys before my time in Harlem called the Purple Gang, and they were always trying to become made members of the mafia and so on and so forth. And now, supposedly, one of the former Purple Gang members is the head of the Banana crime family. His name is Michael Mancuso. Does the Aryan Brotherhood look at these organizations as farm teams, and who can we make if that makes sense?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. There's groups out there. Fresniks, they just did a case on them. They're rednecks from Fresno, but Fresno, if you know anything about Fresno, predominantly Hispanic city. It's where the
Mm,
Fresno Bulldogs come from. So they will do business with Hispanics also. You have Sacromaniacs, which is some people, say is a more of a biker club. But I remember Sacromaniacs because when I worked at Folsom, I lived in Sacramento, so
mm,
ran into some of those guys in prison and out in the streets. Um, you have a lot of different the Coco County Boys, which is just white dudes from Contra Costa County up in Northern California. When they got to jail, in prison, they would stick together. So they were a recruiting base. Quite a few Aryan Brotherhood came out of there. So absolutely, yeah, they look at some of these other groups as recruiting, but they also take, freelancers.
mm,
It's I don't know. You use the analogy of baseball. Yeah, you have minor league teams and the major league teams. Aryan Brotherhood, of course, would be major league team, minor
Hmm.
league team, Peni, Nazi Lowriders, Fresnex, Cocoa County Boys. But they also take guys, that haven't played for a minor league team. They're just independent guys. It'd
Yeah.
be like drafting a guy right out of high school. If he's
Right.
a really good, solid drug dealer and stuff, they'll
Yeah.
yeah,
They'll take them.
they'll groom him. He's gonna, they're not gonna Aryan Brotherhood doesn't recruit 16, 17, 18-year-olds, but
Right.
what they'll do is they'll groom him. And so yeah, he might do uh go for runs for them, little missions for him and stuff. And then as he gets in his 20s, maybe an associate. And I think you said that you mentioned Vitanza was the youngest Aryan
Yes.
Brotherhood member. I believe he's 36 years old. So yeah,
Hmm.
that's mid 30s. That's still, especially today with the prison gangs, that's pretty normal. You gotta put in a lot of work. They've been infiltrated so many times by informants.
Hmm.
And so just like the biker gangs, they want this guy to be, working, doing dope deals and doing dirt, for at least 10 years before
Right.
they even trust him because everybody's suspect these days as being a snitch.
Unbelievable. You know what's funny is anytime I hear the word Peckerwood, I immediately think of that Saturday Night Live skit with Richard Pryor and Chevy Chase. Do you remember that famous skit?
Yeah, yeah,
There's,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Two more questions, then we can move on. Um, you said that the height of the skinheads were basically into the 80s, into the 90s. And I kind of agree because I remember even growing up in New York, I remember there were factions of skinhead groups, and we would see we would go hang out, we would see flyers and so on and so forth, and blah blah blah. And it was so it got to the point where white kids who weren't even skinheads were shaving their heads and wearing Doc Marten boots and flight jackets and so on and so forth. But it became fashionable, right? Became the trend. And then I think the peak, I think the movie American History X came out with Ed Norton in about 98 or give or take, right? What was it that turned the power down? What was it that got them so weak? Because you would think, because you had mentioned the border crisis and so on and so forth in the United States, you would think that what's happening in the United States now, you would see an increase in these white power groups, but you're not. You don't see an increase in them.
Well, I think we're still seeing a lot of activity, but the hate groups have changed. It used to be the KKK, you
Right.
know, and then I I used to joke with people, maybe sheets are too expensive these days. I don't know. You know, the uniform got to be too expensive. I don't know. Then you saw Nazis, during the post World War II, especially in the 50s with the anti-communist Red Scare. You saw a lot of neo Nazis um, pop up, and guys, wearing you know brown shirts, Hitler's little helpers and stuff,
Mm.
Nazi uniforms with Swazis on them, and that kind of, even some of them even putting a little mustache like
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Adolf had, and like you mentioned, trends. It's interesting. Yeah, that's definitely. Sometimes it becomes trendy then. Then you started seeing the skinhead groups come along. Uh, First in England, and then went to the United States, and that attracted a lot of uh, white youth that felt upset with different things that are happening. Um, but like I mentioned, there was so much infighting amongst those skinhead groups. Uh, they really kind of like self-destructed, and they're still out there. So I know some of them are saying, wait a minute, I'm still a good skinhead. But their momentum kind of shifted then towards more the Peckerwoods, because now Peckerwoods, you don't have to fill out an application. You don't have to go through this big, procedural process. There's not
Hmm.
as much politics as there is with the skinheads. So it's easier to be a Peckerwood. You could be a Peckerwood when you're in jail and prison, and then when you get out, you can go back to working 9 to 5.
Right, right,
You
right,
know,
right.
making 100,000 plus a year. They really have no ties there,
Mm.
like a skinhead group would. You leave them, you're considered a traitor, and probably going to be on the hit list.
Gotcha.
So um, uh, TJ Layton, rest in peace, a good friend of mine. He was a skinhead, and he was uh, targeted when he left. His best friends were out to kill him,
Really?
because he was considered a traitor, yeah, to the organization. And he started working for the Anti-Defamation League and Southern Poverty Law Center and these groups that target a lot of these hate groups. And yeah, he was high on the hit list.
Hmm.
Um, and so he has a good book out there too. You could look up his TJ Layden if people are interested in the skinhead movement. As far as Peckerwoods, you know, it like I said, it's so loose. They're everywhere. They're not just in that San Fernando Valley area. Even that San Fernando Valley area, they weren't as organized as they make them sound.
Hmm.
You know, it's a lot of them. I think were associates or some females. I think they hooked up there. It's just
Did
I
the
don't know.
feds have a lot to do
And
with bringing them down by any chance?
oh yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Like I said, they were. I kind of seen it coming. As soon as that vacuum is there, there's people looking to fill the spot, move on up
Hmm.
into the lead spots in these prison gangs. It's happened in Mexican mafia cases in West Familia. It's not just this case. I've seen it in many prison gang cases.
Hmm.
I'm sure with the over there in the East Coast, about Italian mafia when they
Right.
Cosa Nostra when they arrest a head guy of one of the families. Somebody else is there to move in and take his spots, and then
Right. Right. Right.
it's kind of like a domino effect. Then younger ones are just hanging arounds. They might become made men.
Right. Yeah.
They move on up. It's almost like you need a vacancy to occur for any movement to happen within these organizations. So I wasn't surprised at all that that came down.
Hmm. You know what's so funny, and I'm willing to bet that the majority of the members of any one of these groups came from a terrible family background. Probably didn't have much family, maybe single moms, or they were out on the street, or abusive dads. And I remember growing up, I had a really solid family structure, and there were skinheads, and then there were like, just a bunch of tough guys that would hang out on the corner and so on and so forth. And I knew a bunch of them and so on and so forth. But in the back of my head, even when I went to a community college and they had like um, fraternities and whatnot, in the back of my head, I was like, I don't need to be part of a group. I have my family. You know, I had older brothers, I had cousins, I had my father, my mother, my grandparents. It's just we were a close knit family. And what's so funny is that you have these people that get away from their terrible backgrounds, and the first thing they kind of want to do is find where they belong, like almost find
Hmm.
another family, if that makes sense,
Oh
right?
yeah, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. A lot of them come from dysfunctional families, but I also know some of them come from very well-to-do families, but they rebelled against that. Believe it or
Mm,
not, you know, hey Dad, I want $1 million. I want to hang out on the street corners. With these guys. It sounds more exciting than you know following in your footsteps. And working a 9 to 5 job. I want to live on the wild side. So I've seen that too.
mm,
But you're right. The majority, I think, come from broken families. Damage. A lot of them are damaged people, and they're seeking fulfillment. I think we
mm.
talked about it last time. Um, a lot of these guys don't have much. They're in jail and prison. They don't have much.
Yeah.
But the Eagles, for an Eagle to be the number one guy or be a top guy, is a big ego booster. Everybody fears you. What they think is respect.
Mm.
Um, I equate it more with fear. They fear them more than respect them. you
Right,
know.
right, right, right.
But
Yeah,
uh,
of course.
but yeah, that's for them. It's meeting their needs.
Right.
And that's power, freedom, fun, and belonging. And these groups definitely will target people uh, for all of those things.
I think it's part of human nature to want to belong to a group. I think we are a social species. And if you don't come from a well-grounded family with some traditional values that you sort out afterwards, you sort out to see where do I belong? Because I don't want to be alone. I need people around. I think it's instinctual for most people, to be honest with you. I truly do. Because the first thing you do, the first thing you see is in the cities when you come from like when black kids come from a single mother home and they don't have a good example of a masculine leader, the first thing they do is start talking to the gangs or hanging out with the gangs, which are a bunch of men, and they think robbing and stealing and fighting and drug dealing is a masculine behavior because that's the only masculine person that they have looked up to or knew known as, right? And I think it's just an idea of belonging. I think people crave it. And I also think that the heads of these organizations know that. And I think they actually take advantage of that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Easily to manipulate somebody like that.
Right.
They can sense it. And yeah, they're, you know, and they're looking for tough guys. They're looking for tough guys, but more than that, most of these guys are looking for people that are going to make money for them,
Mm,
so they could use them to get drugs. I think we talked about that last time.
yes.
Get easy access to drugs, free drugs. They'll take a cut off of everybody. They just it's sad, but then a lot of people don't realize they're being used and abused until it's too late. They're catching a life case because they committed a murder for one of these guys, and
Mm.
then they find out that hey, this guy don't give two shits about him.
Yeah,
You
it's the
know.
God's honest truth. All right, so that wraps it up about the Peckerwoods. So please tune in. We'll be talking about the Mexican mafia